Who have a 6-0 lead. Well, this is a very strange and sad opening day for us at SNY. It's our first opening day since the passing of our beloved director, Bill Webb. Bill passed away earlier this spring, and some of the pictures here with his family, his wife Cindy, and his 3 kids. And Bill meant so much to us personally, as well as being the seminal director of his time for baseball on television, and it's very odd for all of us to be here without Webby today.
Baseball is never going to be the same doing the game in the booth with Webby gone. You know, this is such a gypsy life. He was my best friend on the road, and you know, I'm trying to let people know out there, he just was so good at his job that all of us learned almost every single day how to do this job better.
Well, Ron, we've known Bill before our days in the booth as players, and as I said earlier in spring training, we don't get friendly as players with the people in the truck. Sometimes we don't know who the heck they are. But Bill, I stop on the way home and run into him. I feel like I've lost a dear friend, and someone, obviously, I cut my teeth in the booth with him.
I mean, it's hard for folks at home to understand the kind of impact that Bill Webb had on their experience of watching games on television, but Bill basically rewrote the book on how to direct baseball on television, and much of what you see and hear on these broadcasts is a direct result of his amazing ability to bring the game home to the viewers.
You know, for our young people out there, I know you use the word GOAT all the time when you're talking about the greatest of all time. Usually it's people that you can have a discussion about. You can't have a discussion when you're talking about Webby. He was a GOAT, greatest of all time.
Well, he will be in our hearts forever, and as Peterson strikes out against Salas for the first out in the 8th, and in addition to staying in our memories, we've also renamed our truck. It used to be Amazin', but after Webby's passing, Amazin' took a back seat to Webby, and that's how our truck, where the controls lie to these broadcasts, will be named. The nice thing about having Bill Webb in our memory is that the stories are unlimited.
Yes.
Not all airable, but unlimited.
Well, yes. I think one of the most interesting things that Bill had a family memorial I was lucky enough to go to with Greg Picker, our producer, and all of Bill's producers, when he worked, were there. And I just sat there and listened to all of them tell story after story. And it was almost like each one couldn't wait till the next one was over his story so he could tell his. And they could have done that for 8 hours or more.
Cespedes coming on, can't get to the foul ball by Inciarte.
Well, I know that all those years at Shea Stadium and the tunnel that went back into the clubhouse, I used to smoke. We all know that, you Met fans. You couldn't see the game if you went down there because it's against the rules. And so I would go into the closest to home plate where the helmets were, and I'd hide in the cubbyhole. And Webby would have that doggone low first base camera on me. And I go, Bill, would you get that camera off of me? He goes, Keith, it's television. It's good TV. I go, Bill, it's costing me $100.
He knew where the stories were.
He said, I'll buy you a drink.
Well, of course, Bill was also the director for all the big games on Fox TV, and there he is at Fenway Park looking out of the scoreboard of the Green Monster.
Bet you was looking for a camera angle there, huh?
And you know, Ronnie, you talked about all of his producers, and you know, you look around this ballpark and all of his camera people,
That's right,
to whom he was so loyal and who had such great affection and loyalty toward him. He was demanding, and yet he was a member of your family, and those guys feel it the most.
It was almost like if you were a camera person, you got called to the big leagues if you got called to do a Bill Webb broadcast, and you knew, one, that's an amazing thing to happen to you, but two, you got to be on your toes because Bill is coming.
Well, I have this, I taped up this thing that's going to be here forever. And it's, how many, Bill will tell you how many Emmys he won. I forgot, there's so many.
40 something, I know.
It's right here, and that's where it's going to stay. And this is where I keep my stats, and when I look over, I will always see Bill.
Well, we used to use that,
There it is.
that graphic right there with the juggling Emmys, and that's only 4 of the 40-something. I love the top hat. It's right. Like the ringmaster. And so he was.
Well, you know, Webby died too young, that's obvious. It's at 70 years old. And I'll say the same thing about Webby that I said about the great Ralph Kiner, and that is that if you've lived a great life, and they both did, you're really sad when they pass away, and then when you start to think about them, a smile comes to your face almost every single time because of all the great moments you had.
Salas having trouble putting away Inciarte. And he struck him out. So back-to-back strikeouts for Salas to start the 8th inning. 2 out and nobody on.
Well, with Salas, you're going to get someone who doesn't beat himself. Throws strikes, 17 appearances last year for the Mets. He was outstanding almost in each and every one.
Dansby Swanson, who has one of the Braves' 5 hits today, singled to right against Syndergaard in the 6th inning. Noah went 6, allowed no runs, 5 hits, no walks, 7 strikeouts, left with a blister on his middle finger. Hansel Robles, who's in line for this win, pitched a 1-2-3 7th. And now Salas picking up from there. And scored all 6 of their runs in the bottom of the 7th. An inning that featured just 3 hits and 5 walks.
That's 8 base runners.
In the air to right, easy for Bruce. And that retires the side. Strong inning for Fernando Salas. As we remember our beloved director, Bill Webb.